we set the weight at 2 pounds.
Great, 8 weeks. Perfect.
Yeah, if anything that's 2 pounds or bigger can get snipped.
Actually, I have 3 or 4 questions that are sort of intermingled.
Alrighty.
The first one, you've talked a lot about cat colonies, TNR, and they go to cat colonies. What about TNR and just release them where they were found? There's no colony around. It's just an individual cat.
Well, when
No
I say-
caretaker.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. When I say colony, I believe the vast majority of all cats are already living in colonies. I'm not talking about relocating them to colonies. I'm talking about dealing with a population of cats that I call a colony. And I believe, even in the urban areas where you maybe see 1 or 2 cats, because their territory is miles, they're interacting with all the other cats in that area. I would call that a colony. And so I recommend doing exactly what you said. You release them where you got them.
Okay, that brings up the second question, is you have these cats now returned to a neighborhood that were caught originally because they're a nuisance. I'm allergic to cats. I can't have cats in my flower beds, my gardens, my cars, my attics, my garages. That's where they end up, looking for shelter because I guess they have nowhere else to go. How do you deal with the nuisance part? That's probably 99% of the reason people trap cats is because they're a nuisance and they're nasty in your flower beds.
Right. Well, I think that there's a huge bunch of education in our program. Again, before we do the TNR, there's a big education piece. They're supposed to talk to the neighbors. They're supposed to get agreement. And then, and part of that is helping people who have issues like that to go through, how do you solve that problem? The reality is if you don't do TNR based on the population issues, you're going to still have cats there. Because no matter what, the cats that you don't catch are going to make more babies and they're going to come there. The reality is when cats are on a property, they're there for a reason. And I'll bet you, if I visited your property, I would be able to tell you why the cats are coming to your house, and I would be able to teach you how to keep them out of your house. And that would be off of your property, and that would be a way, that would be something that people involved in this program ideally would be able to help you do too. The other thing is I would just challenge you to say is I believe in dealing with nuisance animals of all kinds, that, people sometimes maybe just need to be a little bit more tolerant too, because the reality is if cats aren't there, you could have fox there, you could have weasels there, and I have a radical attitude that is, there's something like 8 billion people on the planet now, and if we say no animals can live in this space, then we're going to have nothing left. And so, but everybody's got to decide what their own limits are. But if you're going to evict the cats, you need to at least have an understanding what the implications are. And if you do decide to evict the cats, you can be taught how to do that. Cats aren't going to come on a property that's not attractive to them.
We have green grass and nice flower beds and a cooler garage,
Right.
And if, just for example, Memorial Day weekend, we caught 3 cats. The week after, we caught 2 more.
Right.
So it's 5 cats in 7 days.
Right.
If those are trapped, neutered, and released back to our neighborhood, now I have 5 cats come into my yard to use it as a litter box. I have a real big problem with that.
Well, what about the other animals that use your yard as a litter?
Those are the only things that use my yard as a litter box.
I don't believe you. I don't. I mean, there's wild animals are out there, and they're
Thank you.
wild
I appreciate
animals
it.
are
Oh, I'm sorry.
wild animals are out there. They're not going to say, "Oh, that's her yard. I'm not going to go there." I mean, that's not how it works. And so, and I would add this. Here's the thing I have a garden in my house. I used to have a fairly large number of feral cats in my neighborhood because about 8 blocks down we have the Dowling Community Gardens, which is ironically one of the first real victory gardens that was put in the United States, during World War II. Beautiful gardens. When they put the gardens in, they brought cats in and released them there to control the rodent populations in the gardens. And they got out of control. Cats were really thick through our neighborhood. And I have dogs, and I have to say, I was really, even though I like cats, I work with TNR, I was always horribly annoyed with the cats because I have a very reactive dog, and the cats used to use I had a privacy fence in the backyard, and they would use the fence as a thoroughfare between the front and the back to go back to the alley, and my dog Barney would go ballistic. And then the cats would tease him, and so I'd hear bark, bark. I was like, the cats were driving me absolutely nuts. And anybody who knew me during that time knew that I was an advocate for feral cats, but I was, my wits, I couldn't stand it. Well, anyway, we ended up doing a TNR project way down at the Dowling Gardens. Well, there's a couple of things that happen when you do TNR. First of all, the spraying, the marking behavior gets dramatically better. The cats roam much less distance. The numbers of cats goes down. So all of a sudden, gosh, the cats aren't around my yard anymore. And now guess what? The rabbits are eating my freaking garden like crazy. And so, the bottom line is that we don't live in a perfect world. And everybody's got to sit down and make a, adult decision about what they're willing and capable of tolerating within their space. And within that space, there's lots of options. Like, for example, if you decide, I don't want cats in my yard, they've got these great motion-sensitive sprinklers that you can hook up in your front yard. Let me tell you, the cats get sprayed a couple of times, they're not coming back. Simple solutions. And I look at it as no different than the people who feed the birds next to my house. They've got bird feeders all over. If I park my car outside, man, it's plastered with food. And at some point, we have to just realize we live in a dirty world, and the world doesn't conform to us. So I hope that answers your question.
Sort of, but after all the cats went, there's no poop and no pee on my doors in the yard. They will be back. They will be back, but I don't think the answer is releasing back to my neighborhood, so they'll all be back in my yard.
But you're missing the whole point, is that the trapping and killing is expensive. It costs your community $300 probably to kill those 300 cats.
I can take care of it a lot cheaper.
But if you lived in Minnesota, you could go to jail for doing it. And so, and if those cats belong to your neighbors, you're actually harming those people because you're not acting responsibly. And so, if you don't, if a stray animal wanders into your yard and you just arbitrarily kill it, you're thinking that's a real solution?
If there's 8 or 10 or 15 of them in my yard, absolutely.
Well, you have to show me pictures of 8 or 10 or 15.
No, they all come one right after another, and sometimes in bunches, sometimes just 1 or 2. But I just can't see the 5 that I caught Memorial Weekend and the week after, having them all back.
Well, the thing is, I'm going to go back to my initial statement, that if you've got that many cats on your property, there's something on your property that's attracting cats to it.
Well, there's a mobile home park behind us. That's, first of all, a problem. That they just run rampant.
In the mobile home park, it would help you tremendously. Absolutely would help your problem tremendously.
But for the time being, trap, neuter, remove, or humanely euthanize.
Trap, neuter, remove is going to perpetuate the problem, and it's going to be very expensive.
Well, I think somebody asked it earlier today, is what keeps if you have a cat colony, one dies, it makes room for another one to come in. If you remove it, it's just geographic where that cat came from.
That's not what nobody said anything like that.
No, somebody asked a question, I think it was Barbara, about if you have a cat colony and one dies, it leaves room for somebody else to come in.
In Oakland Colony, started out with 200 cats. Now we're at 40 cats. They don't come in because the existing population of cats isn't breeding and they're territorial, so they push the other ones out. So you're not understanding what I'm saying.
I understand that, but I also know of other cat colonies that have stayed the same or increased. I mean, it has to be very, very, very tight management for a cat colony to actually work.
Right, they have to get to
They
have to get to 70% sterile.
At least, like 71 to 87%, and then that's going to take many, many years. No immigrants can come in.
It does not have to take many, many years.
Okay.
And in the interim, doing nothing, killing them, is just a non-stop, non-solution. You'd have a faster solution putting motion-sensitive sprinklers in your yard, or figuring out what's attracting the cats to come there in the first place and getting rid of it. Or just realizing, cats are up there.
I do have a question.
Besides the water sprinkler that you were talking about, is there something organic that they can plant that would discourage them?
There's a variety